Welcome back to Adobe Premiere Made Easy. This is Chapter 8. In the previous chapter, we introduced the basics of audio editing. However, it's important to remember that sound engineers are specially trained professionals who work with dedicated hard-end software. The same applies to colorists. Therefore, this chapter will only provide an introduction and an overview. An essential part of video editing is adjusting the color of your footage to achieve the desired look. This process involves two main steps. First, correction. This is the process of normalizing the colors in your footage so that you have a consistent starting point. For example, you may have footage from different cameras or shot under various lighting conditions. In our case, the footage was shot with a camera from Blackmagic in a RAW format. That means it is flat with very little contrast and saturation. It also means that it takes up a lot of space. When I've converted it to MP4 files for the upload, I already did the color correction with DaVinci Resolve, a free software from the same company who makes the camera. When we look at our footage, I have here this cutaway 2 with the cut, and you see in the program monitor the version from the download you got. And underneath is the original footage. So I disabled the clip on track V2. So you see the underlying footage and you see how flat it is with little contrast and saturation. Let me right click and say reveal in Explorer. Here we see the MP4 file from the download directory, and you see it's almost 400 kilobytes. And now let's have a look on the underlying file. Reveal in Explorer. Here you see a bunch of files, all single images, 1284 single images, and on top is the audio file for this clip. And if we look up to the directory and go to properties, we see this is almost 3 gigabytes. So it would have been too much to upload the original footage. That's why I already converted it to MP4 and did the color correction with DaVinci Resolve, because it's specialized in the footage from this camera. Both is from the same producer, hard-end software. So enable this again with Shift E is the shortcut for that. Step 2 is grading. This step involves applying creative color adjustments to your footage to give it the specific look you want. In Premiere, we use the standard effect Lumetri Color for color correction and color grading. As with any standard effect, there are 3 ways to apply it. Let's go to our effect panel and type here in the search Lumetri Color, and here we find this Lumetri Color effect. And first I need a file. Let me take this Airshipit bridge, put in on video track V1, go to my effects, and now I can drag it onto my clip and look to my effect control window. As soon as I drag it here and release the mouse, this effect appears here, Lumetri Color. I delete it just to show you the other ways. Like always, when the clip is selected, we just need to double click and we add this effect. And of course, I delete it again. We could also drag it from the effects panel to the effect controls. And here we have all the settings. Let's go to basic correction, for instance. And here it starts with exposure. Here I can increase the exposure to make it brighter. I can decrease it to make it darker. With this crooked arrow, we can always reset the parameters. And we have white balance settings. We can make the picture warmer by dragging it to the right, or colder, more blue by dragging it to the left. I reset this. But with this effect, we also have a 4th way to apply it. Let me delete it again. And here we have this panel Lumetri Color. If you don't have it in your workspace, just go to Window and add Lumetri Color to your workspace. As soon as we do any adjustment in this panel, let's move up the exposure a little bit. As soon as we do that, the effect is added to our clip. And all the changes we do here reflect, of course, to the changes to this effect. So we increase the exposure a little bit, and you see this 0.4 increase, which we did here, or I decrease it. It all automatically, immediately reflects here in our effect settings. And what we can also do, I talked about the two-step process. We can add multiple effects. I can add another Lumetri Color, just drag it here, and I can rename it. So I can call this right mouse click, rename, and call this correction. And then I rename the second and call this grading. And we can work with this two-step process here. They will be executed in the order they are applied here. So first this effect and then this. So if, for instance, we do an adjustment here in the color balance, in the temperature, let's make this a little colder. All the second effects are applied here. I can go here and now increase, let's say, creative, the saturation a little bit. And it starts with the original settings. It's already, you know, more blue, a little colder, because we did this setting in the correction segment. The same is here in the Lumetri panel, Lumetri Color panel. We can go here and switch. We have this two. We have the correction and we have the grading, and we can also add more effects here. If we want to have a third level of effect, we can rename it. So everything you can do in the effect controls, you can do here in the Lumetri Color panel. Since the color correction for all these clips were already done in DaVinci Resolve, I delete this effect here and we stay with this, and I reset it. Furthermore, color adjustment can be applied not only to the entire image, but also to specific areas. You can restrict the effect using a mask, for instance, and we do that here. We have in the effect, you see the symbols, ellipse, a square, and the pen, where we can create a mask. For instance, I can say this part I want to darken a little because this image is so bright here. So I can draw a mask, I move it here, I can manipulate the size of the mask, and I say I want this area to be a little darker. And now when I manipulate the exposure, you see only this area gets darker. And then we can feather the mask so it doesn't look like a hard border. We can feather it here, or we can manipulate the feather in the mask settings. You see here mask feather is now, we can decrease it, increase it here. And now this mask doesn't look, if I click away from the mask, we don't see the border anymore, we just see the effect. And also, I delete this mask again, I click on it, hit delete. And now the effect is for the whole picture because it's not restricted to the mask. And I reset that by double clicking on the slider. We can also restrict effects on specific color or brightness when we go to our curves and we go to the hue and saturation curves. Here we can restrict the effects. Here, for instance, I have hue versus saturation. I have this eyedropper. If I take this and say I want this red to have a different saturation, so I want to increase the red from the, you see how all these reds are increased, or I want to decrease it, and I want completely make it black and white, you know, so I have no reds in my picture anymore. So we can, or let me reset that by double clicking here, or I can say hue versus hue. I want to change the red to green. I take my picker here, my eyedrop, and now by moving that, I change the red to a different hue, and now the reds are green. So you can have special effects, like you can also, we can inverse this. So sometimes you see a movie where everything is black and white, just the red hat or whatever looks in color. That's how you can do that. So you can restrict your changes, or you can say hue versus luma. That means, let's take the same red as an example. I want a red's brighter by increasing it, or I want the reds darker. You have various possibilities. Another method to restrict color effects is using track mattes. Let me demonstrate that with a simple example. I have this clip from Airshebet Bridge, and by holding Alt, I click and drag it up and create a duplicate of this clip. And the clip on top, I want to desaturate it completely. So I make it a black and white clip. And of course, now you only see the black and white, but underneath is still the regular color. So by disabling it with Shift E, you see the clip underneath. Now you see the clip on top desaturated. And now I want to say, I don't want everything desaturated. I just want certain areas desaturated. I can use a color matte. Let's go to our project. And here I have some gradients prepared with Photoshop, very easy, black and white, simple black and white grading. You see here goes from black to white. And if I drop that on top, and let me extend it over the clip, I can use this grading to affect my clip underneath. And I go back to my effects and I look for matte. And here we have track matte key. I drop that on the black and white version of this Airshebet Bridge clip. In my effect settings, I have here the track matte, and we say, okay, where is the matte to find? We have the matte on track 3, and the matte is not alpha, but luma. It's black and white, not. So now by clicking this, oh, I made a mistake. Track matte is not on 4, it's on 3. So that's why it doesn't work. So track matte is on 3. Now it uses this track matte, and you see where the track matte is white, the effect works 100%. So there is total desaturation, total black and white here, and normal colors here. And we can change and check other versions. Here I have another track matte where it's like a diamond shape, and the effect, the black and white, will only happen completely where it's completely white, not at all where it's black. So we replace that. I pull that into my gradient fill. When I hold the old key, it will replace that. And now you see this effect is only, you don't see that well because it's only here in the middle. Let's take another. Let's take this one. I drop this in. And you see this area in the middle is now black and white. All the rest is not affected. I can also inverse, and then it will be the other way around. So now where it's white, it will not be infected. So you see the top and the bottom is black and white, and we have color in the middle. So you can restrict the effect, the color changes you did on various ways by Luma, by color, or by track mattes. And a track matte like this can also be a movie or an animation. Let me go here. I prepared in my footage. I have here the track matte. This is a video. We can watch the video playing here. So at the beginning, the effect is 100% because it's all white, and then it drops in. So let me drop this here. And you know, now the black and white effect, it's happening dynamically. You see how the black and white now happens here as the video plays. And now it's the other way around, because here now it goes from black to white. So here everything, and we have inverted the effect. So when I go back and I skip this invert, then now here the effect will happen where the white is. The general rule for these Luma mattes are white reveals and black conceals. So wherever it is white, unless you reverse the effect, wherever it's white, the effect will happen, and wherever it's black, it won't. So white reveals, black conceals. The creative possibilities are endless. I'll create more tutorials on this topic later. For this introductory tutorial, we'll stop here, as I want to cover two more specific features. In all the examples shown so far, the color effect is applied to a specific clip in the timeline. However, you can also apply it to the source. For example, let's go to our rough cut. If you want to apply some color changes consistently, you have two options. First options, let's use the desaturation again. So I desaturate this, and you see it lost all its color, it's black and white, but the second part is still in full color. So what we can do, we can copy this effect by going into our effect controls, select this and right click and copy it, or just hit on your keyboard Ctrl+C for copy, or Command+C on a Mac. Then we can go to this clip, this part, select it, go here and paste it with Ctrl+V. So now we have the same black and white here on the second clip. I delete it. I show you a faster way. Like always, you can select this clip and now Ctrl+C for copy. Now we select this part and hit Ctrl+Alt+V. And now we get this menu and we can say what should be copied. And we want this Lumetri color effect and all the other effect. No, not the motion, not opacity, not timing, because this is different from clip to clip. We just want this effect copied. So I click OK. And as soon as I do that, it will be black and white. Okay, that is one version. I delete this effect again here. And I also delete it here and show you another method. Instead, we can also color correct the source. So we go here, this is cutaway 1, I double click, and now I have it in my source monitor. and I can do the color correction to the source. And by taking away the color, right now you only see it in the source monitor. As soon as I release my mouse here, you see it applied to the clip here in my timeline and to both parts, because we corrected the source. So when I want to change anything later, I want to give the color back, I do that here, and now the color is back. So we have the option, instead of applying the effect to the single clip in our sequence, in our timeline, we can do that to the source. And that is especially practical if you have like long shots and you want to use it several times in the same edit, then you do it to the source. Finally, we can use an adjustment layer to apply the same setting across multiple clips in the timeline. So let me go here into my project. We click on new item and choose adjustment layer. We want the same size. So if you're working with the full HD version, you choose the full HD. I'm working here with the UHD Ultra HD. So it's 3840 by 2160. Okay, I click OK here. And now I have this adjustment layer. I want to put that into my graphics. And now we can pull this adjustment layer in our timeline. And I want to adjust the color of all my clips in the dialog section. To have a consistent grading. And what I want to have here, I want it a little colder, so I go here -15, then a little more to the red, so let's give it like that, and then a little more saturation. So now I have this grading, and when we look, this is now consistent over all the clips. When I disable it, you see the original color. It's a little warmer and less saturated. And when I enable it again here, you see the modified color. And this is because the color adjustments were made in the adjustment layer and not in the clip. This is consistent over all the clips in our sequence. And now we're done with editing. So we have all the effects on the clips. We put them all in the right place. We have sound and we have color. So the next chapter, we will output it in a format for YouTube with the export functions. I hope you will join us again, and bye-bye.